Today, we are building a $900 gaming PC. This is not the most optimized gaming PC out there. I already explained this is just a lot of extra parts that I had laying around in my studio. Amazon is completely slacking when it comes to 2-day shipping, so I couldn't buy things specifically for today's build. However, this will obviously still turn out to be a baller AF $900 gaming PC. So the first up is the CPU. This is the 11600K. You guys already know everything about the 600K. I was debating about going with the 11400, but the reason why I didn't is because I have to use, I needed an excuse, honestly, to use this super expensive ASRock Z590 Extreme Wi-Fi 6E. This motherboard costs like $240 right now or so. That way, if you do want to take advantage of a Z590 motherboard, you can overclock this as much as you want. You're not going to be able to overclock it too well, probably, with the 500BR, which is our power supply, the EVGA 500BR. I only paid $30 for this. For the graphics card, we have the GTX 1660 Super from MSI, specifically the Ventus model. This was purchased from that massive NZXT refurbished drop that they had like a week and a half ago or so. For RAM, we're rocking some of my favorite YOLO 2x8GB kit, clocked at 3000 megahertz. This I obviously had laying around because I buy like 10 of those at a time just so I have them. For our SSD, this was a ZTT deals deal. This is just the WD Black SN750 500GB. For the cooler, we have the Arctic Freezer 34 eSport Duo, and we will be putting on our own fans onto the CPU cooler, which are just going to be the standard $30 up here fans. For the case, we have the DIY PC Rainbow something. I don't even know what this is called. The Rainbow Flash S1. And then finally, our cable extensions. All right, let's start building, guys. We got to get this going. Once again, this is our ASRock Z590 Extreme Wi-Fi 6E. A very expensive motherboard, but it'll obviously get the job done. Go over to here. Unbox this bad boy. This does actually have a black and blue color scheme, which looks pretty sick. I'm not a big fan that it came included with this green PCB Wi-Fi card, but we're just gonna have to make do with that. No IO shield is needed. We don't really need anything else out of that box, so we should be good with that. And then let's get this box out of the way. Here we go. Is that bright enough? Yeah, that looks bright enough. We should be good. All right, let's get our CPU out first. Did I not open this? No, I didn't. Wow. There we go. Sharpie that PCB. That actually wouldn't be a terrible idea. It does look really... Look how ugly that is. That's really ugly. Okay. This is my first ever Intel 11th Gen CPU that I've ever used on the channel before. Obviously, you can tell because I don't know how to unbox it. There we go. Get that out of the way. All right. Open up our tray here. I see the little corner piece at the bottom left. Feeling a little nervous, man. First 11th gen GPU will hide the PCB? I don't know, man. I don't know if it will, to be honest. Alright. We'll get this bad boy in there without bending any pins. Close our bracket. Just like so. That pops off. And boom. We got our CPU installed just like that. That's how we roll, man. The RAM. This would have looked nicer if this was something other than black. It's just kind of going to go in stealth mode a little bit. We probably should be building this on top of the box, but I think it'll be okay like this. There we go. We got that. And then we got our, what's it called? Our SSD that we'll do next. Once again, this is the WD Black 750 SN750, one of the best Gen 3 SSDs that you can get right now. There, we got that right there. Thirsty Thursday time, here we go. I know, it's officially starting. All right, it looks like we're going to install this underneath our M.2 armor. The heat shield right here. I didn't look at this motherboard ahead of time, but I would just assume that it's going to be under here, which it is. Although that one's labeled Ultra. Oh, this one's the Hyper. Okay, this is the Gen 4 X4 slot. So that's what we don't even need to do that, but we will be taking advantage of that. Or we will not be taking advantage of that. But we're just going to put the SSD in just like that. We don't need an extra screw because the screw... Oh, almost forgot to take that off. Definitely want to take that... the wrap off. All right. We don't need an extra screw because the screw of the armor is going to hold down the SSD itself, which is easy. Okay, there we have that. That's looking very clean. Okay, what else do we got to do? We got to get the CPU and the CPU cooler installed. These are never fun. I always forget how to do this, especially with this Arctic one. But like I said, we are going to be removing the fans that this one comes installed with, and we're going to be putting on our own up here fans purely for the color scheme. It's definitely not the most optimized thing to do for airflow. However, aesthetics over everything, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's get out all these parts. What do we need for LGA 1200, people? What do we need? So the cool thing about Arctic, if you guys haven't installed an Arctic CPU cooler before, is you simply take a picture of this QR code, and it opens up the installation instructions. All right, so it looks like the first thing we need to do is remove all of the fans from the cooler, which you would have to do even if you were using these, but like I said, we are not going to be using these red fans purely because of aesthetics. All right, here we go. So according to the instructions on the phone, all we need to do is install these plates on the side like this. And then we just take our one single screw, screw this down. You just got to be mindful that these brackets go both on top of the built-in bracket and also that they are curving outward as opposed to curving inward. I sometimes get that mixed up with these Arctic coolers, but that's fine. Just watch the VOD tomorrow. Yeah, that would work too, rather than staying up that late. Okay. So next up, we don't want to install the thermal paste. No. I need some type of bracket, don't I? Yeah, there we go. Is this bracket going to work for LGA 1200? Oh, wow. It actually will. Okay. Yeah, so that's actually pretty easy. All we need to do is install this bracket that it came with. That is specifically for LGA 1200. And we put that in like so. And then we're just going to need to grab these screws. And we got to make sure that you select the right screws for these because it comes with like 13 different options. The standoffs, I mean. I don't know, man. It's always hard figuring out which ones to use. I usually just guess. I'm hoping this is the right one. Definitely just want to make sure that you're not cross-threading these, meaning like you don't feel like you're grinding away metal whenever you're screwing these in. I'm pretty sure based off of the picture that these are the right ones, but there is a very, very real chance that these are the wrong ones. But we'll see what happens. What phone is that? Looks dope. Yeah, it's just a Pixel 4 XL. It's pretty old at this point. Okay, and then the last standoff. Hopefully, once again, this is the right one. Oh, nope, that definitely ain't it. Isn't there an Asus ROG phone? I think so. I don't know anything about phones though, man. Like I said, I'm usually just an iPhone guy. Buy the latest and greatest iPhone and then call it a day. But my iPhone broke, so I don't know actually. Okay. All right, all these standoffs are in. And then all we have to do is figure out what screws to use, because there's 3 different screw hole options to use for these brackets. So before installing the thermal paste, I'm just going to set this in here and make sure that we use the right standoff and make sure we figure out what screw holes to use, which I just did, and now I know we're good to go. So I can peel this off of the CPU cooler, and I can apply some of our MX... Oh, where'd it go? There we go. I can apply some of our MX4 thermal paste, which just happens to be what I have on hand. We'll just do a little P dot on there. Wipe it off so it doesn't stick to the cap here. And then making sure that our Arctic logo, which you can't really see, is facing upward. Just drop this on top of here, and oh my goodness, that looks clean. It's a little dark on camera, I apologize. However, that looks pretty clean. So now we're just going to grab these thumb screws here and start hand tightening these screws down, and then this CPU cooler install will be done. Hey Zach, I just came home from dinner with my family. Oh, hopefully you had a good dinner, man. Where'd you go? Can you please recommend me a good budget MOBO? Well, it depends on, I don't know, like what socket you're looking for, what chipset you're looking for, what your budget is. How could I possibly make a recommendation without that type of information? Okay, so now that those are hand tightened, I'm just going to use my screwdriver here and screw down in the star pattern with the screwdriver, and then this thing is good to go. I guess I can install my fans now. Yeah, we might as well do that. We'll install the fans now. Actually, no, I'm not going to install the fans now because they're going to be plugging into the actual fan hub because they're all from up here. So I'll actually do that once this is installed in the PC itself. We'll do that. And the next thing to do is to install this in our case. So this is what the motherboard, CPU, RAM, and SSD, and the cooler look like all together. And wow, that is super clean so far. All right. Let's get our case up here. Boom, there we go. That looks dope. I agree, man. I agree. All right, so we got our DIY PC case here. And since we don't have the I/O shield, or since the I/O shield is actually built onto the motherboard, I mean, we are just going to plop that into place. And I'm realizing that we should install some standoffs here because this case did not come included with some of the full-size ATX standoffs. So I'm actually going to install those myself because that would make the board a little too flimsy for my taste. Where's my standoff? There it is. There's my tool. There we go. That Extreme 4 MOBO is baller AF. It looks clean. Alright, so just going to install a couple of these standoffs right here using the standoff tool that I have. I'm not a big advocate of installing all the standoffs. I think you can get away with only doing a couple. I'm just going to install the 3 on the side here, just so the right side of the motherboard is nice and sturdy. And this one's not going in, actually. Oh, that standoff's all jacked up. We're not going to use that one. Is the RX 550 good? As long as you're playing like super not demanding games. It's definitely not going to give you a ton of FPS in the AAA titles and whatnot, but you'd be fine for like esport games and whatnot. All right, now that we have these 3 standoffs installed, let's go back to our motherboard, and now we can slot this in. And there we go. Now we have standoffs for at least the 4 corners, which is what I care about. So let's get these screws installed for that. Boom. Next build, he's going to use that standoff? Probably. I should have just threw the standoff on the ground. That way I know not to use it. But instead it went right back into my tackle box. And there's a really, really high chance that, yeah, I end up using that again. Certainly. You're going to have to remind me on the next Thirsty Thursday not to use that. All right, we'll install one more up top here. Good thing I have a magnetic screwdriver. Boom. There we go. All right. So that is definitely in there. That is looking nice and clean. Now let's start to plug in all of our case connectors before we install our power supply. That way we can keep things a little bit organized. Okay, so next up we're just going to install all of these, what's it called? The case connectors, which isn't really worth showing you because they're all pretty annoying. But I'm just going to get all of these installed, and then we should be good to go. Take my word for it that we are installing this. But we don't need the HDD light. We just need the power button and the reset switch, right? That's all we need. I decided to plug in all of these just because these cables are super short. And if I don't plug them in, then they're just kind of going to be hanging there. So I'll plug them all in. And then I also forgot that I'm actually selling this build. I don't think I'm making a YouTube video on this one specifically. So because I'm selling it, I kind of want to like do it right. Now we need to do the USB 3 cable, which is just at the bottom here. That's plugged in. We want to do a USB 2.0, which I don't know if that's going to reach. These are pre-zip tied, which is kind of annoying. I don't know if I have enough room here without having to break the zip tie. Hopefully I do. That USB is plugged in. And then the HD audio needs to get plugged in as well. Looks like we're going to have a little bit extra room. There we go. Okay. So those cables are now installed on the bottom. And that is all of the cables that need installed for this case. So now that those are out of the way and slightly cable managed here in the back, now is a good time to install the power supply because these cables are good to go. Let's do that. Okay. So next up, we're going to be installing our EVGA 500BR. There is no cutout, so there's no vinyl to install. We're going to have to... Oh, I forgot this build is really rough to get this PSU installed with these cables that we just installed at the bottom of the case. So you kind of just got to jam it in there and hope that you don't break anything. And we are almost in. It's hard to manipulate the PSU when you don't have a PSU shroud or a PSU shroud hole. But that's in, and those cables do not look like they're affected. So now we just got to screw in the screws for the power supply, and we'll be good to go. Sorry, Bam. It would be fun. All right. Now that the power supply is installed, let's start installing our cable extensions. That way we can get the 3 major power cables plugged in here. So the first one is going to be the motherboard's 24-pin connector. And the good thing that I always say about these Formula Mod cables, although they are cheap, and although they're not like the 100% the best to work with, they do come pre-installed with the cable combs. So I don't have to waste time doing that. They're already installed, as you can see here. So we got the 24-pin there for the motherboard. we need the 8-pin for the CPU motherboard power connector, which we have. And then our GPU only requires an 8-pin, if I'm right on that. Just an 8-pin? Yeah, just an 8-pin, which is why I only brought this 8-pin from Formula Mod. I didn't even bring the other one. Okay, so we're just going to plug in the 8-pin, and there we go. Now we have all 3 of our cable extensions plugged in. And then the other one that we are going to need for this build is SATA power, because we're going to need to plug in both the fan hub for the up here RGB fans, and we also need to plug in this SATA power that powers the front case's RGB strip. So the other power cables that come with this power supply we don't need, which is just another SATA power set and then a Molex set. And those I'm just going to jam back here in the back of the case, and we'll act like those don't exist, and we'll hide those back here. So now that we have those installed, let's take care of SATA power first. So I'm going to plug in the SATA power to the fan RGB strip. Like I said, that is just going to go back there, and then I'm going to leave one of these SATA power cables exposed because I'm going to need that later on for that up here fan hub that I was talking about earlier. Next up, we'll get the 24-pin power cable for the motherboard, and I'll start to fish that through the front of the PC after I twist it around here. There we go. Okay. Fish that here through the top and plug that in. That's what it looks like so far. Oh, look at that blue, man. That blue is looking nice. That blue is dope for sure, man. I'm loving how that looks. Faux show. All right, so we got to plug in the 8-pin. Oh, I just uninstalled it. There we go. Hard to see this. But whenever these motherboards have the built-in I/O shields, it's hard to see this 8-pin connector sometimes. Just kind of got to feel it out in there. But there we go. All right, the 8-pin is connected. And now we don't have our GPU installed, but I'm just going to route the 8-pin power supply connector up through here now. And I'll just leave enough slack. Just like that. So now we have this rat's nest of cables back there, which I'll just do a little bit of basic maintenance on cable managing these for right now. Nothing too crazy, just some basic cable management so they don't get in our way later. So we'll probably jam this 24-pin down like that. That SATA power can stay there. This GPU power cable, we definitely don't need to be visible, so we can leave that right there with room to pull it out if depending on what our GPU looks like. And then our 8-pin for the CPU, we can jam most of it down like that. And then I'll probably just do a tad bit of cable managing, maybe like right there, up here, to kind of keep that in place. Yeah, let me go get some cable managing stuff real quick. That way we can keep it like that. And then all of this other stuff, like that can just be, that can just go down there, no problem. Let me go get some twist ties real quick. Got some twist ties. So I don't want to go super overboard with this. I would like to get one twist tie. Sorry, it's focusing on me. I would like to get one twist tie going up here. It's kind of a difficult spot to get it. But that way we can really like yank down on this 8-pin connector and really be able to hide it. Yeah, there we go. Just like that. There we go. Okay, so that's twist tied back there. And then I'll just do one more here just so we can really keep that out of the way. That we don't have to think about that again. And we'll probably use these twist ties again for whenever we install the up here RGB fans, but it's good to just get these started because it's super easy to untwist them and then add to it later. I got a cheap AF 1TB SSD for $40. I wouldn't believe that, Infinity, till you see that it ships, man. That deal from GameStop today seemed a little too good to be true. I would wait. I would wait till that ships, to be honest, before I start bragging about that. Okay, so that's pretty clean cable managing so far. Now, before we install the GPU, yeah, that's super clean so far. We really just want to get these up here RGB fans installed. So I already looked at this build ahead of time, and we're only going to be able to install 6 fans. So I want 2 on the CPU. Once again, I already explained it's not the most optimized thing to use one of these cheapo fans on a CPU cooler, but it is what it is. These are spare parts, so we didn't get the 100% most optimized build. But with this case has a serious downfall, and the way it's laid out, because of the RGB connector right here where my finger is, you can't actually install a third RGB or a third fan up here. You can only install 2 here. It's super annoying. You would be able to install a radiator up there, but like not too many people are installing radiators with a $50 DIY PC case. So that part is annoying. So we'll have two fans here up at the front. We'll have 2 on the CPU, and then we'll have 2 for exhaust. So 2 intake, 2 exhaust should be perfectly fine. And yeah, that'll be the setup that we have for this build. So let's get these up here fans. I'll probably just install them at the bottom. Or should I go the top? Should I see how... Yeah, we'll just install them as high as I can get them without bumping into that connector. Yeah, so right there. We'll install them as high as we go. Painful with the Tempest, he says, I missed it. What was the complaint? The the connector, the RGB connector for this fan, or for the front of the case, like shoots inward towards the case, so you actually can't install a fan up there. Even though there's mounting holes for it, you can't install... Oh, that's right, I forgot. You can only... Oh, this is terrible. I forgot how bad this was. You can't install these fans if they're 120 mils unless if you go at the bottom, because there's no 120 mounting bracket towards the top. It's really bad. I'll show you when I'm done. Let me install these fans, and then I'll show you what it looks like, because I've used this case before, and unless if you do like what Mark is saying, where you get washers and you create a little bit of depth between that connector and the fan, like, yeah, that would work. But if you don't do that, then you actually can only install the fans in the bottom 2 positions. You can't install one up at the top. Yeah, this is definitely a downfall of this DIY PC case, but you get what you pay for. They're cheap. They look good, but they're cheap. And they do make some not optimized choices every now and again, such as this RGB connector, but it's really not that big of a deal. Okay, so I got those 2 front fans installed, so we can slap this on here. Now this isn't ideal because, oops, snapped it on with the connector. With the connector behind there. This isn't 100% ideal because our 2 front fans have to be down here, which isn't in line with the CPU. But like I said, there's nothing you can do unless if you did the whole washer thing, which Mark was talking about. But it's really not a big deal. So now that the front intake fans are installed, like that, still looking clean. It just looks like we're missing a fan. Let's get our exhaust fans installed, which, like I said, we're going to do one at the top and one at the back for exhaust. Okay, just installing these up here in the exhaust position. All right, and then we just have this last fan is our other exhaust fan. Definitely getting a little crowded back here. We can no longer see the color of the cable extension back here, which is unfortunate, but we'll be able to see the RGBs, which is good. All right. There we go. All right. So we got the rear fan installed and the top fan installed for our exhaust. And then, like I said one more time, this is not the most optimized thing to do. But we're just going to use the same RGB up here fans to install on our Arctic cooler purely for the reason of getting all of the RGBs to look the exact same. That's the only reason I'm doing this. And because I couldn't buy anything on Amazon because of the delays on Amazon that I was talking about earlier. So I'm just going to install these two fans on the CPU cooler. With the Arctic Freezer 34, you can really install any fan that you want to on here. These brackets will probably hold any fan that you throw at it, and you'll be good to go. There we go. Okay, that's on there. See, just like that. See, that way they're going to look all the same. It's going to look pretty clean. They're all going to be the same color. We're not going to have to, like, worry about color matching them and whatnot. It's just going to be nice, simple, and clean. Yeah, so the one bad thing about this case, other than that fan that I was talking about earlier, is we are really cramped up at the top of this case, especially because I already installed the top exhaust fan. It's really cramped up here, so I'm struggling to feed this cable through, but we'll be okay. There we go. Okay, got that fed through. Now we can just install this back fans. There we go. Okay. So now we have all 6 fans installed. That's what it's looking like so far. Pretty clean. Pretty clean so far. And then the back, we just need to plug in the hub for all of these RGB fans, and then we should be good to go for the GPU. So these are 4 of the up here fans, and then these are the 2 front ones. And then this is the up here RGB fan hub, which, like I said earlier, just needs SATA power, and that's why we left or tried to leave at least, one of the SATA power supply cables somewhat exposed here. That way I could access it later. And we'll plug that in. And then we can jam the rest of those cables in the 2.5-inch hard drive tray because we don't need those. And then we just plug in these. So this usually comes with double-sided stick tape. I probably removed it the first time I used this case. I don't know if all these cables are going to reach down to here. Oh, wow, they will. So we're just going to do this super simply and not worry too much about the cable managing. So just going to make sure these all have good contact and plug all 4 of these in for these back fans without trying to bend the pins in the hub. That would be ideal. All right, so now that the hub's installed, I'm not going to do anything more than jam these cables here. I'll give a little twist tie action. Are these going to fit anywhere nicely? No. No. See, like if I wanted to like be super clean with it, I could do that, but that's just not going to... The DIY PC case doesn't give us that option, so let's just twist tie these just so it doesn't look stupid. And then we can twist tie it one more time right here. Once again, I am selling this build, so I don't want it to look terrible, but I'm definitely not going to go above and beyond. Just because this is a quick sale. Not the best cable managing ever. What GPU? It's a GTX 1660 Super. Okay. So we'll just pull these here. Just real simple cable managing. Oh, and I just broke the twist tie. Yeah, it still works. There we go. That's it. Keep the back a little nice and clean, no big deal. And that's it. All right. So we're almost getting there. It's looking clean so far. Okay. So we got those installed. Now we just got to install this GPU, man. Okay, so this we actually have to remove one more of these brackets. And this is unfortunate. I already removed one of these that we don't need. So from the last time I used this case, so we'll actually need to find a white removable bracket because those were the kind that just you break. We'll have to find one to replace it with because this definitely doesn't look good having an empty bracket here. Definitely have to address that later. All right, there we go. Got the GPU installed. Install our power cable for the GPU with the extensions. Try and make that look somewhat clean. There we go. Like that. These Formula Mod cables aren't the best to manipulate, but they're the cheap ones, so you get what you pay for. We got our 24 pin up here that we want to cable manage just a little bit. Make it look a little cleaner. Like that. Like I said, you can't even see the 8 pin. And that's pretty much it, man. Let's install this back panel. And then hopefully the build's good to go. We'll have to turn it on and see. Just get this back panel on. The cable management was enough. At least I thought it was. There we go. Was enough so I didn't have to crank down on it. There it is, man. That's it. Simple black, white, and blue build. Let's install this back plate on here. And let's see what this looks like. Oh, there it is, baby. Oh, so the only thing we'll have to do before I configure it is, or before I sell it, is the RGBs on the motherboard are set to full RGB spectrum. So we're not going to get the full look of this entire build. But if we do this, then we can't really see the motherboard. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is a clean AF $900 white, black, and blue gaming PC. That looks pretty fire, man. Thank you guys very much for watching me assemble this gaming PC. I think this one turned out pretty baller, if you ask me.